Hi everyone, I'm Sandy. I'm here with Pete Hancock, and today we're going to have a chat about fasting. So for me personally, I'm from a non-Christian background. So the idea of fasting is quite a challenging one. So I'm keen to find out from Pete why it is that it's actually important for Christians to be able to fast, particularly over Lent as well. So I'll hand over to Pete. If you could introduce yourself, Pete, for those who don't know who you are.
Hi everybody, I'm Pete. Part of my time I spend as associate pastor with Potter's Church, and part of my time I spend as a consultant for the mission of the various Methodist churches in North Staffordshire and Cheshire.
So the first question I've got for you really is that fasting is something that all religions seem to hold in a high regard, but for Christianity, can you tell me where that all started?
It goes back to before Jesus, really, and interesting to note that there's quite all religions tend to have fasting as part of their spiritual discipline. So there must be something about it, mustn't there, to help us to grow spiritually. In the Old Testament times, people would fast. Sometimes that was to do with penance. Sometimes it was because they were seeking special help from God or God's guidance, or maybe preparing for some great act of service. Jesus certainly fasted when he was preparing for his earthly ministry, and that's right at the very beginning of the Gospels. We see that he did that. So we take our cue from Jesus, obviously an important thing for us as Christians, and it's in the context of trying to take up a more of a spiritual view of life, and perhaps also giving to the poor as well. That's a whole part of it, trying to bring ourselves more into line with the values of God's kingdom.
So why is it that fasting particularly is focused upon as so much, and why is it that people feel they should do that?
It's good to give the idea that it's not just about giving up. It can be about taking up and adopting a sort of spiritual discipline to life, and that can be, as we were just saying, a pattern of prayer and taking up certain activities. Could even be, taking up walking or running and offering it to God, and saying that, Lord, I'm doing this for you, and make this part of my way of getting more in line with you. But the fasting thing itself, the going without the food, is the best way I can describe it is like an acted out prayer, in a sense. You're giving emphasis to the fact that you're praying, you're coming before God, and you want to be open to God, and really fasting, you're creating a space in your physical body by not filling it with food, and that sort of mirrors the fact we're creating a space in our spiritual lives, our whole life, to be open to God. And because Jesus did say, didn't he, we don't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the Father. And so we're sort of intentionally creating that space.
I really like that. I like the idea that it's an acted out prayer, and that brings about a whole new sort of many more options perhaps as to how you could do this over Lent. So how in our busy modern day lives do you think that we could create a space for some sort of an acted out prayer? I mean, you referred to running there. Is there sort of what could we do to help with that discipline?
I think it's any way of putting a greater discipline, a greater shape, in a sense, into our lives. The sort of structure that helps us to be more in tune with God. Because in a lot of our lives, we're all the same, aren't we? We're a bit reactive, aren't we? If we see some food, we'll say, "Oh, I like that, I'll have it." And we've got some work to do. I'll get on with my work. I'll get on with that. Get on. Or there's entertainment on the telly, on the media, or whatever. We want to watch it, and we don't think too much about it. And I think during Lent, it can be good just to look at how reactive we're being, and be a little bit more structured and creative spiritually. So, I mean, one of the things I've done in the past is only watch no more than 2 hours television in a day, and that's quite difficult if there's a football match on, for example, or it can be, doing a healthy thing, from the point of view of walking or something, because God is interested in our whole being, but I think building in something that says to us, I don't have to go the way of the world. I'm going to go God's way. And when you look at Jesus, he went out early in the morning to pray. He just had a healthy lifestyle. So we can do that during Lent.
So, I mean, I was wondering, I don't know what you think about this, Pete, but, you know, people do give up like chocolate for Lent. And I was thinking that if I give up chocolate, or if I give up television, for instance, so that I can go to bed earlier, is that a good thing to give up? Because giving up chocolate might benefit me. I don't know.
I think the crucial thing is it's okay if it's a byproduct of the main event, but if it's the aim, then it's not. You know, if you say, well, I'm going to use Lent, giving up chocolate, so I can get into better shape or something like that, and that's my aim. It's a Slimming World thing, you know. That's not quite it. But if you say I'm going to use Lent as a period to be giving up certain types of food or certain amounts of food because I want to serve God, and that's my aim. If the byproduct is that by the end of Lent you're a few pounds lighter, all well and good, you know. But it's a question of what the aim is, where the heart is. There's a thing in the Old Testament in Isaiah about God says to the people of Israel, I hate your fasts because you're only doing it for yourself. You just do it as a sort of a formality, you know, and then you just get on with the rest of life as if nothing's changed. Obviously it's got to change the heart. And I think there's got to be like a sacrifice about it. So it's got to cost you something.
So for people who are maybe like me, who are giving up something for Lent for the first time, or they might try every year but really struggle, what sort of support is there for people? Because this is quite a hard thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the first thing to remember is that whatever step you take in the direction of God, that's great, and God loves it. And even if you've tried it before and it hasn't worked, God knows you've tried, you know. So He isn't sort of saying, "Oh, they failed; they're not going to do that." So it'll be good, and God will start rejoicing that you're even thinking about it. So that's one thing. There are things though. There are sort of pre-structured things like you could go to a Christian bookshop or go online. There will be all sorts of books about Lent, you know, a journey through Lent. I even knew one about Delia Smith did one, you know, through Lent. Or there'll be apps and things like that. And also, some churches put a structure on. Potter's Church, we'll be having prayers at 8 o'clock every morning, won't we, for 8 minutes?
Yeah, so, that's right.
So something like that, you know, if somebody made that a sort of a pattern and said, that's what I'm going to do in Lent, going to make sure I do that every morning, get out of my bed and be there. That's something. It helps you, it gives you a structure rather than you have to manufacture it yourself.
I think for me, when I've been trying to figure out what it is that I can do, having spoken to you and thinking about how it's about a discipline in your life, and it's perhaps something that's a bit of a sacrifice and that sort of thing. I think something like prayer, which doesn't spring to mind when you initially think of giving something up for Lent, but actually committing to something at 8 o'clock is a discipline and is creating 8 minutes to pray with other people for that time. So yeah, that's that might be a challenging one for me, and actually might be something that I do. I think that could be a good one, Pete.
I think it's important for us to just say as well, some people won't be able to fast because of like their physical condition. You know, if you've got diabetes or something like that, you're pregnant, it's not a very good idea to fast. So God doesn't rule you out then. It's just like you finding another thing that gives a structure to your spiritual life. And it could be taking up an activity or reading or whatever. And God knows that's your fast. So it's important for people to realize in the end of the day, it's a transaction between you and God. You saying to God, I'm serious about this, God. And God saying, okay, let's see what we can do by the Holy Spirit.
I think that's been really informative for me, at least. People who are watching, if you're still watching now, thanks for sticking with us. I hope that you've taken something from our conversation. It might not be the 8 to 8 that is for you. It might be physical discipline. It may be giving up something food-wise. But as Pete said, don't give anything up if that's going to affect your health. I found that really helpful. So I hope those of you at home have also. I think that's it from us. Anything else, Pete?
No, that's fine for me. Yeah. Nice to chat.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.